Alquito, if you're ready, let's join these players at the featured match table.
Ready, baby. So it's cool to see here the Ahri versus Kaiser, a kind of Holden stratagem versus, as you've already seen before, War Crimes. Less War Crimes than the other deck we just saw. To be fair though, Kaiser does have this a little bit of an aggro engine built into herself, obviously having Accelerate, but overall, she just kind of want to clear the board as much as possible while taking away points where she can. Coming with a very standard 2 cost here with the Ravenbloom Student, which was at one point Origin's most picked up card.
You know, something I do want to point out, though, traditionally speaking about the Origins meta, Kai'Sa used to have a very favorable matchup against the likes of Ahri's, right? Because Ahri likes to set up on the battlefield, tries to set up that blue chosen champion on one of those battlefields, but that champion is just at that all-important 3 might, and that is just the perfect might for a Kai'Sa deck for those pesky falling stars to take down 1 unit, maybe even 2 units like that Ravenbloom Student if they can't buff it up high enough. So traditionally in the past, Ahri has had a really tough time dealing with Kai'Sa, but maybe things are a little bit different. Let's see how Estelion approaches his matchup, as he is on the play since he was the undefeated higher seed. Does get to get on the battlefield first and score the first point, as we're seeing the first point of the game being scored. It just matters because I think this was the Kai'Sa player, was it a turn or two ago or a round or two ago? There was one that drew all 3 falling stars in a single game. Did you see that, Alquito?
I did, and sometimes you're lucky enough to do that, sometimes you're skilled enough to do that, and sometimes the comets will just fall out the sky for you.
Right. Sometimes things just line up picture perfect for you, but here we go. It's not an accelerated Kai'Sa survivor, so just playing it down to the base, but that is already going up to 2 points, and we've seen a nice little crucial component of Ahri's game plan was that Blitzcrank earlier on. So if he has something like a Blitzcrank bringing in the Kai'Sa survivor from that back line, wouldn't feel all that bad. But first thing, getting a free meditation with the tap of the unit into energy, drawing 2, trying to keep that hand size nice and healthy. So Blitzcrank no longer available as you only have 4 runes. So I'm wondering, is this the time you go ahead and try to establish out your champ? But we said he's trying to bring in the survivor in. There's another way around. It's the charm, it looks like.
That would be 2 spells played on your side, so that's 4 into 4. I'm sure we can find ourselves 1 more spell, right? Just go into 5 at least to fight back against this poor little Kai'Sa. We do see the Hexen Ray come out, though.
That's right, the Hextech Ray, no matter if the Ravenbloom is going to take a whole lot more than just a simple buff spell, because it's looking to trade 1 for 1, which isn't terrible. We are talking about taking down a survivor, so you're denying them the draw in the future turn. You're denying them the point for the future turn, so this could be a decent trade to say the least. So I don't think Ahri is feeling all that upset about it, as long as he's able to play out a unit this turn. If he's not able to play out any unit, then you kind of definitely lost a bit of tempo. But I would imagine he had to be expecting something, because Kai'Sa, whenever they have a single energy up, you have to expect something like a Hextech Ray, because that was pretty notorious card in the Oranges set.
That's it. It's either going to be a Hextech Ray or a Stupefy, something simple enough. But as I did mention earlier, there's always a chance to see yourself a little bit of counterplay with a little bit of a tougher might unit coming out here. And that actually adds 3 might to the Ravenbloom as it is a spell.
And wait, let's do quick math. So he played 2 spells. He's up at 4. Discipline brings it up to 7. And then Hextech Ray effective 4 HP. There must have been a spell we were missing. Wait. Let's take a look. It was Meditation, Charm, Discipline. So 3 spells. So up at 5 plus the 2 up at 7. Doesn't that trade? Oh, the Ahri, of course. That's the single thing I was missing. I haven't played against the Ahri in forever. Of course, the charm bringing it your way, and the Ahri making that Kai'Sa a simple 3, so surviving to see another day. But the Hextech Ray coming in offensively is going to take a little bit more. Okay, it's actually the Zonya's Hourglass getting revealed.
If you need to keep the 1 unit you've got alive, you've got to do what you got to do. But just like everyone who plays against Master Yi, the old version, everyone forgets what Ahri does the first time they play him on the first turn.
It just seems to be like we don't get to see, well, we haven't in the past got to see too many Ahris, but now they might be running around a bit more frequently. So it's good experience that we're seeing it here. It's double Stupefied just for the double draw. and he just goes ahead and retreats back to Yodo, as he's most likely will be passing the turn with a couple runes. But if he has something like and triple stupefy, you know, it's a bit of a feels bad moment. Yes, you do draw a good amount of cards, but now you're completely out of that nice little stupefy option on a kind of counterplay combat trick capability type stuff. So I don't know. Wait, that was 3, right? Because I definitely saw 3. It was 3, Agito.
There is 3. There's definitely 3 in that trash.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you just have to dig deeper. Stupefy is not a terrible card. 1 for 1, over and over again. Doesn't cost a power. Not the greatest thing to have to give up, obviously, but it doesn't feel too bad. Coming in here with a Emperor's Divide? No, sorry, Desert Skull. Getting yourself out these recruit, well, Sand Soldiers tokens. It's quite an interesting thing to think about. Is having these extra little might things around, just building up a little base in the area. It's not like in yellow you have to worry about Imperial Decree. Bella's Breath is a thing, but you're having to repeat it, so it costs you 2 and 2, so it's more of a detriment to yourself. They obviously have 2 of the blue runes up currently, presumably 4 next turn, as they'll go to 10. But it's not the worst position to be in.
I'm wondering here, though, does Ahri want to go ahead and try to push up, or does she feel like she doesn't really have the cards in hand to try to defend one of these battlefields? You could go ahead and conquer Zon Warrens, go up to 3, pitch a card, draw a card, but choosing to go for the paper tree, so still goes up to 3. And looking to most likely hide a card. We saw the Zhonya's Hourglass before, and I'm trying to think back a couple rounds ago. What was a potential other hidden card? Because the only thing that rings a bell was the Zhonya's Hourglass, but I swear there was another one, but I wasn't the one on the cast, so you know, when I'm on the backseat, I'm looking at all different things. So there might have been another one. Anything that rings your bell, Agito, for that hidden card?
I say in green and blue, you're looking at things like Consult the Past. You're looking
True.
at Wages of Pain. Not necessarily you're going to play Wages of Pain, but Wages of Pain. There is the Emperor's Divide, which is the green flash, as I like to call it, which is the essentially a fight or flight in green. Zonya's that we've already seen, and I think there is something else, but my brain will forget until we see it. So that's generally like the 4 cards that you'll probably see hidden on these battlefields in green and blue.
Yeah, it could be something like a nice little draw engine as Consult the Past, but I swear there was just this one card that is on the tip of my tongue, but I guess it will be revealed soon enough. Passes it back over the Kaiser, conquers with a simple Yordo, now has 10 total energy to work with this turn. We saw him pitch to get excited, so most likely has a good amount of kill spells, as he feels like he doesn't necessarily need that get excited anytime soon. But you know, I like this card being played in Ahri decks, a Desert Call, but as I say that, the board might just be going bye-bye, Falling Star coming down, 3 damage on both of the backline units, unless there's something like a not so fast to save the day for those Sand Soldiers. Or do you want to save it for a little higher value units, because they are technically tokens, right? So they're not that important. Oh, and it was a Consult the Past, Agito.
That's it. Right now, I'm agreeing with you. Tokens aren't exactly these big bodies that can just stay around to do what they want. Possibly just letting them go is always a plan either way. But Consulting the Past here, maybe get yourself a counter spell that you're after, or maybe a unit or a body that could help out next turn could be more valuable.
Right. And chat helping us out like they always tend to do. It was blocked. That's the one card I was thinking about. That Ahri we saw earlier rounds. So not that we're seeing the deck list, but I just remember they did indeed play a block on the feature match table. So they might have something like that later down the road. But for now, just trying to keep that hand economy nice and healthy, nice up, and has about a couple runes to play. And guess in case there's a kill spell heading over in the Ravenbloom's direction. Because right now, the Consult the Past does increase the Ravenbloom student up by 1, so at 3, and doesn't decide to accelerate the Watcher, interesting enough. So trying to play around something like a Twonk, as we saw that in the previous rounds. So I think he just decided to play it nice in the base, but that will be going up to 4 points for our Ahri player. They don't have anything that can interact with the backline except the Charm and except the Blitzcrank. Are we going to be seeing something like that on this turn? Because if you get rid of the Watcher, Kaiser only has 4 cards in hand. You're feeling pretty good about your odds closing out this game number 1. And I think this is the biggest hand size we've seen from Ahri so far in all the rounds we've got to witness her.
Quite possibly. To be fair, green and blue do draw quite a lot of cards, so it's not unusual to see a fairly sized hand in these. Sona, I love you, but I hate you. This woman, she's everywhere, and she's only here to upset me.
Right, you love to play her, you hate to play against her, and in this situation, going to be reading 4 runes as she is indeed ending the turn on a battlefield. So 4 to 4, tying things back and forth. These players go. Now you have a Watcher to be very considerate of, so effectively does have enough might to take down the current paper tree, but with the hand being at 7 for Ahri player with 4 runes available, I don't know about my odds of cracking that battlefield, at least on this turn, because I smelling a stun heading over in the Watcher's direction. And Kai'Sa being Fury, being mine, there's no true counter potential from her side. You can't hard bargain or anything, honestly. There's no counters. There's definitely no counters in that domain color, so it's a little bit more predictable, but they do make up for it in just sheer high quality cards like those falling stars, like those hex tech rays.
That's it. Red isn't known for its counter ability, but it's definitely known for its power. And as you said, falling stars, hex tech rays, voids, seekers, which I'm not sure if they're running anymore, as well as the Icathian rains that you normally see 1 or 2 of in decks now, as Aurelia isn't as prevalent as it used to be, but still is kind of a top card going forwards. Moving out that 6 might now, as we did see originally from the lovely young Vixen, that is Ahri, giving it -1. So it's 6 into 6 currently. But did we just see a big thwonk then?
We just did, and this is a pseudo, not a true counter, but a way of protecting your units, a retreat coming down, allowing you to enable that Watcher ability one more time, as well as accelerating it, which he might just very well be doing on this turn. So 1, 2, accelerate one more time. Do you have a second Twonk available? Because he's no longer stunned as he returned back to the hand. So he's 6 to current 6. Actually, wait, it's 6 to 8 currently. Or no, 6 to 7 right now because of the one spell. So he's down by 1 actually.
So it's 6 into -3 on both. So Ravenbloom would be at 1. Sonya would also be at 1. So it'd be 2 into 6, but Thwonk does it anyway. So a second Thwonk in hand is also very interesting. And there we go, out of spite now.
Right, falling stars, a little bit of get back from this Watcher. I'm wondering if they didn't realize they were actually 1 more might above the Watcher, right? Because it was 7 collective might versus the 6 swinging in from the Watcher. You didn't have to use the stun. I wonder if he didn't realize that at the time. Either or, he had a plan B the entire time, whether the Watcher went down, but you wanted... Wait, the Watcher doesn't recall back. The Watcher's dead. Oh, -3. What am I talking about? Sorry,
yes,
chat.
It's -3 both there,
To be fair, I wasn't supposed to cast these semifinals, so I'm a little bit out of it, but I will get it together. Of course. -3. What in the world am I talking about? Watcher's like the biggest card of set 1. But yeah, forgive me, chat. We're back at it. Throwing it over to Ahri. And now he has to figure out how is he going to make his way to truly defend these battlefields. Because one thing he does have going for him is Kai'Sa's running very, very low on cards. 3 cards is not where you want to be as a Kai'Sa player.
No, again, not a massively good draw engine when it comes to red. Blue has a little bit better. Void Seekers was essentially the other card that got you draws. Kai'Sa herself used to get you draws. Unfortunately, she perished very quickly in this matchup. But overall... 4 and 4, and I'd say overall the Kai'Sa's on the back foot and she's still keeping up pace. Can't be too bad. Next turn can go for 6 to 4 or 6 to 5, presuming that the Clockwork will walk in here and take a battlefield.
Yeah, I think you're making a good point. I think
sure
go ahead.
Where this needs to go really from here, just because again 6 cards in hand is not too bad. What we've seen from the Ahri so far isn't really a loss of units, just some very good units. But again, we're now sort of on the back foot.
It does feel that way, and something as you mentioned, eventually Kai'Sa's going to run out of those good kill spells because I believe, gone through at least 2 falling stars, 1, 2 hextech rays, all 3 stupefies. So she's running out of ways of clearing this board. Is so unlikely that the last 3 remaining cards are going to be something like a falling star number 2. So Ahri realizing it and testing his odds, saying this is the time, no better time than the present of developing my chosen champion. On top of that, to make it even better, we have a charm to -4 on that Watcher, or -3, I guess, because it's 2 or 3 for the champion. Two. Okay, so -3
the
total.
champion, yeah, and then also gave in the old feral strength just to make sure that Ahri was also just punching down as hard as she could.
And that it did, taking down the Watcher, throwing it back over. And now with 3 runes, if there's something like a Defiant Hand, I'm feeling a whole lot better. If I have no counterplay here, then I'm slightly nervous, because you never know what is in the hand for Kai'Sa. You know, you mentioned they don't really have Void Seeker, but Void Seeker wouldn't be all that bad. Granted, Ahri's just at 3, so it would just take that third and final Hextech Ray, but there is reaction speed, spells like the On Guard, like those disciplines, so taking the safe route over on the Paper Tree most likely will be tying things 5-5, and this semifinals is as close as it gets, as we see a Time Warp get played out on the side of Kai'Sa, so make that 6-5. If they draw into something like a Watcher, things might be getting super interesting here.
Overall, interesting play. Not necessarily going to be winning you much, but you have put yourself ahead now. It's now on your opponent. Can they do something the following turn, as they have now been shrunk down by 1? There's not a lot in hand to do, but there's definitely things you can do in hand. As you can see now with a Fallen Star.
Unbelievable.
That
The third Falling Star has been found, but as we predicted, there had to be some kind of counter in the hand. We saw no Defiance, we saw Not So Fast, so that was the perfect opportunity to go ahead and let that go. And that is it, Aguito. No more Falling Stars for the remaining of Game 1. You have to give a nice little breath of fresh air, or a sigh of relief for the Ahri player, that you don't have to worry about that spell going forward.
No, you don't. And as you can see, Meditate has been used exactly on battlefields every single time, tapping out a unit, getting maximum value of it each time. And hopefully we're getting some actual value out of this. We are now in the position of, unfortunately, losing this next turn, going to 8 on the side of the Kai'Sa. But we do have some interesting cards to see from this deck still, so hopefully we can kind of push it out a little bit longer.
Yeah, we haven't yet seen that Blitzcrank as we saw in the earlier rounds. For Kai'Sa, I think we've seen the majority, but the Desert Call one more time on repeat, so should be able to establish 2 Sand Soldiers in the back line. Or actually, it wasn't repeated, just one time, so that you could keep a couple runes available on the defense. 3 cards at the ready, 2 cards for the Kai'Sa, sends in the Sentry, and off the back of the Time Warp, Aguito, that is going to be a surprise win for Kai'Sa. Unbelievable. I didn't think that was possible, but she found the line.
To be fair, no one ever suspects the following turn Time Warp, to be fair. It's a very unusual play. But it happens, you know, most Kai'Sas these days are running 2 of. Very rare to see 3, but definitely 2 of. And as, I don't know if we're allowed to say this, the players are talking to each other, it was a top deck. So sometimes you're just that lucky. It was 4, and then on their turn they went to 5, held to 6. Pulled back, and then on that one, which was the turn afterwards, they went to 7, held to 8 on the Time Warp. So yeah, they got 4 points out. 4 points out of it in brackets.
Right. So yeah, not too bad.
Yeah,
I don't think Estelion could have ever played around that. It's very tough to play around Time Warp in these colors. The only thing you could do is something like a Wind Wall, which he had the energy, but not a lot of Wind Walls being played, as you know, Not So Fast in the 5 attempt to do the majority of the heavy lifting for most of the spells that Kai'Sa has, but a Valmond's Lair trying to keep things in place, and a Falling Star even on a single unit seems to be the choice Kai'Sa wants to make. It seems a little early, but maybe he just feels confident that he's going to keep drawing into more, just like he did in Game 1.
I think sometimes it's a case of, if I can keep them from scoring points, eventually I'll get units and then we can kind of meet in the middle. Right now, I mean, Kai'Sa's here. But right now, it's just a case of, if I can keep them 1 step behind while I'm also a little bit behind, I'll do what I can. Taking the first point there on the side of the Ahri is pretty good. And as you said, Wind Wall is kind of the only counter to some of these weird big spells, and generally you only really run them in the side deck, so possibly going to see 1 or 2 in this game, but I wouldn't expect it from Game 1.
You know what I will say? I do like this Eager Apprentice in these art decks. It works very similar how Vex works in the purple decks. You get a nice little cheap discount. It doesn't add any additional cost for your opponent, but just for yourself, it's a -1, or I should say a reduction of 1 to a minimum 1 on all your spells being played. And that's not during combat. Of course, on your opponent's turn, you could only play those spells unless the reaction speed in combat. But we'll be able to conquer with the Kaiser. But interesting enough, goes into the Volmon's lair, which you're effectively trapped. But we have seen cards like the Retreat to kind of make her way out of that battlefield and then accelerate her on the other side if she finds the opportunity to do so. So it doesn't feel like she's fully trapped in there for the whole game.
Oh, that's it. You got a way to deal with this situation, and as you said, retreat's pretty good. You essentially go 1 for 1 and card back to hand, especially with accelerate. Middle of the range accelerate, mind you, but still very good, and just keeps you in tempo.
It really does. So let's see. And something that's been able to keep the tempo rolling or keep the card advantage rolling is that meditation card, which in the past we haven't honestly seen too much of. But I believe this Ahri deck is running 3 meditations by just the sheer amount that we were able to see in game number 1. And it seems to be a nice little piece of this Ahri deck to really make sure they never run out of answers for the remaining of this best of 3 series. And I like it. How are you feeling about meditation in Ahri?
I'll be honest, it's pretty good. As we saw last game, all 3 were played at 6 draws total. Now in this version of the deck with the Eager Apprentice out at 6 draws for the cost of 3, you can get access to all 3 of them. So overall, very cost effective.
Yeah,
maybe we'll also see a charm, since I'm just trying to wonder if they're trying to just basically buff up the Raven Bloom to try and drag over the Kaiser, as charm can take you from a battlefield to a battlefield, but obviously not back to base.
You're saying your own units back to base?
No, so obviously it's in Varmors right now, so you can obviously charm it over to the other battlefield and then have them fight. But from the seams of it, fair enough.
Yep, I know exactly what you're saying now.
So this is an interesting display on the other battlefield. Spells cost maximum of 1 really at this point.
Uh-oh is right. When your Thunder Song coming down, you have to play reaction speeds. Play the hidden card if you see it. So consult the pass. Does get deployed, get the nice little draw too. And does he want to go ahead and try to play something like a Discipline to try to buff up these units? You're trying to prioritize the eager students. So Raven Bloom goes up to 3 from the 1 hidden card being played. I would imagine you want to try to hold on to one of these. Only 2 energy to be considered up for the Kaiser remaining, and then there's 6 total might incoming on that board, but -2 from the Ahri, right? So only effectively 4 might to worry about. So if you bring a Discipline, one of those eager students should be able to survive at that nice 5 might threshold.
They cost 1 less as well, so they're only 1 costing might by 2. Draw a card. With this as well, the Raven Blue student will also gain a bonus for just having a spell played. If there's any more cheap cost spells that they can, like another Discipline, now we're going to go to possibly, is it 5 on each side maybe? So 5 Eager Apprentice, 5 Eager Apprentice, 5 Raven Blue Student. That's 15 might on that battlefield for this turn. Yes, they've emptied their hand of these combat spells, but you've kind of wasted your turn there.
Yeah, I mean, this is the most they can do. That they can only play reaction speed spells to react to the activation of the Thunder Song. So I believe that should be it. So the best you can do, and I didn't see him pick targets for the Discipline. Oh, he spread the difference there, Agito. It looks like he's going 5-5-5, knowing that the most incoming damage from the Hopeful, from the Yordle will be 4. He's being greedy, but rightfully so. He wants to make sure every single unit most likely survives, unless there's something like a combat trick, maybe even another falling star. But no, it's going to be a smoke screen, reducing that might from 5 down to 4. So a Yordle swinging in for 1 should be enough to take down the student. But now the Hopeful is no longer enough for that Grove. So holds one more time, double draws for the turn. And this is exactly why Ahri has a boatload of cards currently. 9-5, you have to be feeling comfortable. You have to be thinking your opponent has to have the counters, right? If you think they have it, they most likely do have it with 9 cards currently.
So right now, there's 9 might you have to deal with. You don't really have to worry about Kai'Sa unless they can get it back to hand. But for right now, it's just 9 might on your next turn. You're running at 6 currently. If you can put any couple of small bodies out there, if you've got access to any sort of combat spells, and you hope they haven't just got a second, or you can just blow them up right now. Crimes are crimes.
Blow him up. Kaiser's completely tapped out, so no such thing as a retreat available for this Kaiser player. So 1-2 punch, taking down the bigger priority targets, leaving behind a little lonely Noxus Hopeful this time around. And Ahri has been piloting this deck to perfection. A little bit of side note, Estelion, it was the second highest MF Aurora, just losing the best of legend out in Bologna to the winner. So it was the second place, was the only person, the only MF player that was above Estelion. So very experienced player, has been in the game for quite some time as we see this Desert Call being played out. But interesting enough, we were saying traditionally Kaiser has a very favorable matchup, but that hasn't been the case of what we've seen so far, has it?
It hasn't, but would you say this is a traditional Ahri build? I don't normally see the Eager Princes in these decks. I don't normally see the Desert's Call in these decks. So there's obviously some difference that they've had to come up with that has just pushed them into a different direction.
Right.
Very similar to the other kind of decks that we see here, not putting everything onto one battlefield to hold, even though that might seem like a good idea, has obviously proven to be a better idea not to. But again, having all these reduced cost spells, having all this draw power, having access to all these battle combat spells, it's just putting Ahri in favor.
Right, very well said. It seems to be the difference maker for sure. Eager Apprentice making those reaction speeds just come out that much more cheaper, so that things like Falling Star aren't as effective, or they don't cost as much resources as they used to in the past. On top of it, I think the Desert Call is indeed making a bit of a difference here, because sometimes you could clear enough units, but Desert Call just adds one too many units for something like Kaiser to deal with. But this is where Kaiser starts to slowly try to mount some kind of a comeback. You establish a good back line, the Ferris Forerunner, 2 little guys on top of that. But look at the hand as we keep going back to, I am terrified if I am the Kaiser player. I would just imagine he has every single pump available, and a Pharaoh Strength repeated to go up to 6 total might, taking down the Noxus Hopeful. I think little by little, Ahri is just getting 1-2 steps ahead of Kaiser.
That's it, and it's always like taking that inch, you'll get your mile. They're currently up a full turn of points here. Obviously, on the other side for Kaiser, they do have access to the Ferris Forerunner, very powerful card. They do have access to the Poro, if they can try and conquer with it to just get themselves the extra points. They do have the Watchful Sentry, which, oh no, I seem to have fallen in battle. You can get a redraw, which is something Kaiser really needs right now, as you keep saying. 8 cards into 3. There's only so much magic that 3 cards can bring, but 8 cards can bring any kind of magic.
It really feels that way. Pass it on with 4 runes remaining, so you just don't know what is hiding in the hand. Things like Not So Fast, things like Defy, but this makes things a whole lot more straightforward. The Bryn Year Thunder Song number 2 coming down. So saying, do you have any other reaction speed spells? We already saw you utilize 2 disciplines, so you have to go ahead and rely on something like On Guard or another Pharaoh Strength. But On Guard for the Eager Apprentice, they're not alone, so that only gonna be a +1 in that circumstance. So I don't think we're gonna see these Eager Apprentice sticking around too much longer. As I kind of say that and think it out a little bit further, we can't forget about those twonks that were utilized in that game number 1, and that's cheap repeated twonk. You could double stun for just 2 energy. If Kaiser kind of forgets a little bit about that and sends more than 1 unit at a time, that could be very problematic for Kaiser.
I say it could definitely be the issue you see here with a lot of people just forgetting cards. For instance, if you're not used to playing against Twonk, to be fair, they've played against it twice now in the last round, but it's not something you see it very often. You only really see it in things like occasionally Jax or Master Yi or Leona, or sort of the 3 that I can think of off the top of my head. Definitely in Vex coming next month, but so far it's not a card you really sort of have to interact with. Now that the phrase now that the Thundersong has come down, no.
Yeah, so nothing can be played. So those eager apprentices will be coming down. No twonks available. Stupefied just to bring it down so that you can't even take down the Ferris Forerunner once to stick it around for a little bit longer. So this could be, as we said before, a bit of a turning point in this game number 2 of our semifinals. Finally gets a conquer on the board, which felt like, actually, what am I talking about? The Ahri Legendary bringing it all down so that you could trade. And Agito, shame on me. How many times am I going to be forgetting this legend ability? But I think this has to be the last time. It's almost getting embarrassing at this point. Either or, 5 points tying things up for this Kaiser. And now look at the board state. Ahri has the hand, but Kaiser has the units online. Double control of both battlefields. I don't know. We were favoring Ahri early on, but this is a little bit to overcome, I want to say.
I was saying earlier, he takes one turn just to swing the game, and that was that one turn that just kind of pushed it in. I do have a funny feeling that maybe Kaiser also forgot about the Ahri trigger again, as they were trying to save what seemed like the Forerunner, but unfortunately, it was also taken away. So no extra draw, unfortunately, leaving them just 2 cards in hand here, but in a deck that just revolves around spells and small unit advantage. Not the worst thing here. We are seeing a double repeated here of the Desert's call, which is obviously we want units in the back here. Makes sense. Try and get as much out as you can. Haven't seen the champion Ahri come out though, but getting close to that point where you start either doing something with it or bringing it out. Never mind. Here it is. On the table we go.
Almost like he heard you, Agito. So going up to a 7-point, then Kaiser doesn't want to go out without a fight, trying to tie things up. Because I think it was indeed Ahri getting that game number 1, if memory serves me right. So Kaiser looking to tie things up and most likely take us to that all-important game number 3. But it is just 4 cards versus the 8 currently. If you can't clear the back line, I think you would have to take something like the 3rd falling star game 2, and imagine that two games back to back where you do have 3 falling stars in a single game. That is just a little bit too crazy, not just for an Ahri deck, but pretty much for any deck in the current format. But something's telling me that he doesn't have it in hand, or he might have just slammed it down to clear 2 units in the back. I guess, did we see a singularity from this Kaiser player, or was that the victors earlier?
They do play it in this deck. I don't think we've seen one come into play. No, we've seen 2 falling stars, but no singularities currently. I'm just going to say they're at 7. Did they top deck a time warp?
Right. The game-winning time warp is what we saw in game number 1. All it takes is 1. But, same reason that we don't think the falling stars in hand, he most likely would have slammed it down. I guess something you do have to be mindful of, there's 3 runes. That kind of signals a bit of a wind wall target. But I don't know. Something's telling me that Ahri is not even sideboarding a wind wall. It just seems too expensive these days when you have more efficient removal or efficient counter like a not so fast and a defy.
I totally agree. I do feel like if the Eagle Apprentices were still around, then it's a very reduced cost wind wall. And if anything, actually, it's too cheap then. But unfortunately, they have now gone to the wayside. But since wind wall can capture pretty much everything besides Thundersong, it seems. I do think you need to put it in here just in case a mysterious time warp does come out of nowhere or hell rain down upon you. So I think it's worth at least having 2 in the deck just in case.
It would be nice, ideally, but Riftbound having a restriction of 40 cards, and here's the answer actually earlier. Does Kaiser run a singularity? Looks like the answer is a big yes, trying to take care of these backline units. But here is the card we were talking about a little bit earlier as well. The not so fast coming down to try to save the day, but he is tapping out the remaining runes and 2 singularities in a single turn. That is devastating for an Ahri player.
It's not what you want to see, but they still have a unit available.
1 unit and a dream. You can't double conquer, but more importantly, you have to take down this Poro. But I just don't like my odds at defending with a Thundersong 2-Mex and a Sentry in the back line. Granted, you do have a whole lot of runes, a whole lot of cards in hand. If you have some more defensive options like those Thwonks we saw earlier on, like the Pharaoh Strengths we also saw, maybe there's a way that the single Sand Soldier can deny the double conquer. But even at that, best case scenario, you do hold for one more turn. You're only going up to 6. And if you get the other battlefield, you're only going up to 7. So that gives an entire additional turn for Kai'Sa to maybe top deck that time warp one more time as they did in game 2 or game 1. So I don't know. Ahri's looking to be in a really tough spot so far.
This is the question now. Do you hope and a dream, get everything you can out, and just pray that you can pull off that one extra card? Or do you just somehow have a Blitzcrank in your hand and pull something to its doom?
So
Who
not
knows?
only denying the hold, but trying to take down that Poro with it, or not with it, but just in general. So, setting up the tank fortress on the Grove, and that's gonna be tough because right now we can do the math is 5, 8 up to 11 plus the 2 plus the 1 is 12, and then -4 on everything. So the total might those units could swing into is 8. I guess technically that's enough, but that's not considering any combat tricks coming out from Ahri.
I mean, both ways. They can obviously bring out a kill spell from the side of the Kai'Sa. Any combat tricks they have here from the Ahri, both running devastatingly large amounts of both. But we haven't seen any Fox come out this game, so there's always a chance there's Fox in the hand. Maybe there's a final. I think we've seen 2, so maybe a third discipline, or maybe a random end guard. I know it doesn't give you 2, but +1 is still better than nothing, which would put you in line. Yeah, it would give you 8 to 8, so it's not so bad. Moving out at the mech here to get that extra draw, as obviously can't conquer to win the game. But is that the dream scenario, is the question here.
All you need is a time warp in hand. You have sufficient runes already fully tapped on rune. Not fully tapped, but fully out of that rune deck. 12 runes available to work with. I don't think they have it, or else they would have slammed it like we said before, unless he's actually is thinking about playing around something like the wind wall, because that is something. But to be fair, we haven't seen a wind wall in all the rounds we've seen from Ahri, but we haven't seen the deck list fully, so we never know if there's a nice little cheeky one-of in the deck. It could be the game-winning one-of, but let's see if he has another way around it, because honestly, something like a Thousand Tail Watcher seems a little bit more reasonable and more likely to come down, and that should be enough. Even with the repeated twonk, I believe you still get there for Kai'Sa.
You just have to take the other battlefield. Try to think what you need there. They go down to 1 and 2. Or another singularity would work as well.
True.
Just anything to clear the battlefield will just help push them through. I think we've seen 2 singularities. I think they generally run 3, so it makes sense that you might see a third one. Overall, though, they are just going to try and hold the battlefield down, which I don't think is the worst place to be. 5. Yep, they would have 1 additional might, wouldn't they? So that goes down to...
So
that's 7 into 7.
Mm-hmm.
So they would just essentially take it out, and then maybe if they do have an accelerated unit in hand that they could play to do that, like you said, the Watchers. Maybe they play a second Kai'Sa for who knows what reason. But, what do they have? Can they do anything to sort of push back on this sort of turn is the question.
Right, it could be. I mean, there's honestly a lot of different play lines here, because you can even Hex Tech Ray the Sand Soldier, make it just 5 to 7. On the other side of the thing, you could double stun Twonk number 1. Does he go for repeated? Because I think he only tapped 2, which I guess is enough. If you stun the biggest unit, you only have 3 damage, so you don't even take down the Blitzcrank, and you go ahead and take down everything. Oh yeah, because it was trading 1 for 1, but the stun makes it all the difference. But oh my goodness, a little bit of BM is that? Wait, Aguito. Oh, he drew it from the Sentry. The win wall, as you said before, coming into play. Unbelievable back and forth in this late game of game 2.
That's all it is sometimes. I think the idea was, could they try and clear the battlefield? If they couldn't, could they at least try and play around the time warp? Windball says no thank you, and then it's 7 to 7. And if you have a Watcher in hand, it's now 8 to 7. So onto that wonderful game 3.
And you guys will see this Ahri deck list, because I even want to see it for myself. It looks awesome.
Yeah, I've been hearing people saying they want to start playing more Ahri just because of the changes with the ban list. And if this is the Ahri I have to face at locals, I want to know what they're doing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. I want to know what they're doing, and I'm happy to see it here, because now I feel like I know what to not totally what to expect, but a little bit more prepared than I would otherwise. But it is going to be Kai'Sa on the play, which she tends to get to the points first. As we're seeing here, Sentry will be the first point of this game number 1, or game number 3 rather, and just goes ahead and establishes that chosen survivor in the back line. And right now, there's not too much interaction for Ahri, as he doesn't have a bigger unit for something like a charm as we saw in that game number 2. So it just pushes towards the Grove. And interesting, wait a minute, Agito, I was just realizing this. Grove with a God Willow from Kai'Sa? That is interesting.
I guess they just need an additional draw. We've seen the Zormorans from them earlier. Their last one, I've already forgotten. And then the Grove now. I think it's just a case of how much can I draw in this deck. Dreaming Tree, I think, was a staple. Occasionally you see a bit of this, which has also been taken down. And then Reaver's Row was also kind of there. I'm going to do fake battles with you.
Yeah, and a card we haven't actually seen too much of in this best of 3 series is the Piercing Light. So targeting the Eager Student, targeting the Sona rather. And right now it has enough, but thanks to that discipline, saving one of these units is the game plan for Ahri. And choosing the Sona, I guess that is that more high value, because isn't it ridiculous rating 4 runes at the end of the turn? It's crazy.
Yeah, I agree. Sona is very good to see in the turn. Obviously, in this case, Sona goes goodbye. Overall, though, I would like to probably value the other card just as much, because that's a continuously valuable engine. Unfortunately, if someone's going to hit you in the face with a smoke wall afterwards, you didn't stand a chance either way. But at least you tried.
Yeah, play towards your outs is what you did, but you couldn't play around everything. And you can't even defy because you're out of calm runes. Maybe a nice little 6-6 split for Ahri. Wishing they had a little bit more calm in the deck, but shoulda, woulda, coulda sometimes, as Kai'Sa getting a bit ahead of the curve. 3-1 with Ahri having nothing established on the board. Things are looking pretty good for our Kai'Sa player, if I do say so myself.
I do agree. Oh! Fine!
Oh. Nice.
All right then.
Just like that, trying to bring things back to an even playing field.
Yeah. I was not expecting to see a singularity come out here. It makes sense that obviously you want some kind of kill spells in your deck when you are having to do a weird control-y variant with a little bit of aggro. Overall, though, happy to see it. It kind of slows down the pace of the opponent. They're going to go to 4 here. As we've seen, they don't seem to run any other accelerated units. We haven't seen the Watchers, we haven't seen Darius's, we haven't seen a second Kai'Sa, so presumably they're having to go one at a time into battlefields now. So that has helped them kind of slow down the speed of this game. Otherwise, it would have been 5-1.
And man, kill spell after kill spell. Both of these guys going back and forth, trying to eliminate the back line. And that tends to kind of favor the true kill speller, being the Kai'Sa, of course. Singularity is a good option for Ahri, but you don't run as much as the Kai'Sa players tend to do. So going up to 5 points, Kai'Sa, as we said before, getting a little too far ahead for Ahri. Ahri is much more of a defensive setup and just hold down the groundwork you laid early on, but playing from behind is not where she feels her best and not where she feels very comfortable in, as is 6 points, and Kai'Sa pretty much can delay the inevitable, is delaying the inevitable of closing out this game number 3, because you have so much time to just build your back line. You don't even have to rush anything. Kai'Sa at this point, or rather Ahri at this point, has to do double conquer for 3 times in a row and you still don't win. Or let me see, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 3 times in a row and you don't even win. So that's just so much breathing room for Kai'Sa. All she needs to do is conquer 1, 2 more times and she wins the game.
That's it. Or, as we know, a time warp. But no, unfortunately not now. Yeah, unfortunately this is the situation you're in. Do you have a way of getting these stuff off the field? Can you put yourself in a position of not being out this turn? Do you have a way of fighting back against the Rebel Alliance? Sometimes you do. Sometimes you don't.
Sometimes
in this
you
case,
do. In this situation, you just don't have too many outs. I mean, yeah, revealing the hand, double wind wall, the block, the crank, the twunk, and the student. And that is going to be all she wrote for our semifinals. A heck of a matchup. You know, to be fair, Not that either player got lucky or unlucky, but the top deck Time Warp was Ahri's game to win, but things just don't tend to happen that way sometimes. That's the fun of TCGs, right? Sometimes at the very end, things can completely change things around. And not to say the better or the worst player ends up winning, but sometimes that's what makes things like the little RNG factor TCGs keeps things interesting, doesn't it?
As a viewer of TCGs, I would agree. It's always good to see kind of that Hail Mary pass that just comes out of nowhere and you just get to go, hey, I'm sorry, I just get to win now.